Okay, welcome to our day four, right from the Heart Webinars. Tonight, we are going to learn how to write a journal and a memoir. I think most of you have heard the word memoir, but still would like to explore how you're going to tackle a memoir. Okay, the reason why I lumped the two, the diary slash journal, which can be used anonymously, with memoir, it's because you'll see that these materials are needed together for you to come up with a good book. So let's go to our presentation. Let me just share our slides tonight. If you have questions again, just feel free to put them on our chat box, and later on we'll have the time to talk about them. All right. So what has been the major benefit of journaling? Hindi na sa atin bago to. During the pandemic, when it hit the Philippines, especially lockdown, I don't know what happened to you, but it was a time of turmoil for some people. It was the best of times. It was also the worst of times. Tama ba? And those who were so used to socializing in person, those who were so used in going around, medyo nahirapan sila, that they had to be confined in their own homes for almost or beyond 2 years. I had a very wonderful outlet during that time because na-realize ko and I felt it, I gained more appreciation for journaling because it has been my pandemic savior. So laging nasa bahay, can you just remember that? I could vividly remember how silent the world turned into right after the pronouncement of lockdown in our country. And also, it was the time for me to really reflect. Ang sarap ng feeling where that was the time when you can really hear or you could really hear the noises around you. Yung time na bumalik talaga tayo sa nakikinig ka na sa huni ng ibon, everything, parang meron na talaga tayong consciousness around us. Whereas before that happened, everybody seemed to be so busy with their lives and never had the time to ponder and meditate. But pandemic taught us that we can use the time to meditate and ponder. And also at the time, maraming lumabas ng mga libro that talked about how they cope up with the pandemic, even poetry collections, and several authors who taught us about self-care, who taught us about meditation, about the practice of slowing down so that you can go further. Now, one of the things that I love, a quotation came from Bruce Lee. Kilala niya siguro si Bruce Lee. Sabi niya, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle and it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Why is this quotation important? It's like our stream of consciousness. It's like the thoughts that we nurture, we harbor every day. Importante na meron tayong attitude that we are like water, flowing through. Diba? Dumadaan tayo sa mga pangyayari sa buhay natin. And if we are just taking full advantage of the daily things that happen to us, no matter how mundane or humdrum they may seem, especially the routinary ones, you will realize that everything is part of a larger process. Yun ang kagandahan ng buhay eh. You cannot really see it looking forward, but now you can understand why things happen looking backward. Ito ay isang importanteng aspeto when you are a diarist or you are a journaler. Kasi importante dito that you are attuned, you are in touch with the senses, with all your senses. Particularly, kasama dyan yung spiritual sense mo. Now, ano ba ang pagkakaiba-iba ng journals, diaries, autobiographies, and memoirs? And biography for that matter. Synonymously, you use journals and diaries, right? That's why when you go to the National Bookstore, fully booked, you can ask, do you have a journal? Do you have a diary? Mostly, parehas ang bibigay nila. The diaries, iba-iba din kasi yung kanilang attack. Sometimes they are methodical, sorry, na the date, what happened to you, parang meron kang certain way of you of writing it. But sometimes you also go out of the traditional way of writing it. In fact, mas gusto natin yung gano'n. You do creative things in your journal. And later on, let's discuss ano yung mga pwede mong ilagay doon. Simply put, journal is the account of your in and out in your life. Okay? It's a regular account of what's happening to you. When you talk about autobiographies, it is a narrative of life from cradle to grave. Usually, kumpleto talaga siya. Okay? So, when you say autobiography, meaning you're the one who writes your biography. Biography is for when you write biographies of other people. But when you write your own, it's called autobiography. Okay? I hope that's clear. Memoirs naman is just a subclass of autobiographies. Focus exclusively on one aspect of one's life. So, unlike autobiographies na from cradle hanggang sa mamatay ka, meron siyang chronological method of writing it. With memoirs, if you have like 10 major milestones in your life, you're going to pick one and then you focus on that one aspect lang. That's why it's called memoir. From the French word memoir, meaning memory. Okay? Memory. One of the most significant diaries over time, if you have gotten hold of this book, is from Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. She gave me a heart emoticon kung nabasa niyo to. This young girl chronicled her life when she was 13 years old, living in Holland. And at the time, sinabi niya yung nangyayari in and out of her life at age 16, which is a tender age, namatay na siya. You know what happens at that time, how Jewish people were persecuted, were killed at that time. So, lahat ng paghihirap niya sa isang German concentration camp nakalagay doon. And she didn't know that to this day, her diary is celebrated worldwide. Because nakita natin dito, the terrors of growing up during the Holocaust. Makikita mo yung ano yung impact nun. So think about it. Sometimes, when we look at our day-to-day grind, it's as if parang ang boring naman ang buhay ko. But you'll never know because we live in a very peculiar time today. Just looking back at the recent events we have, grabe ang onslaught of calamities, grabe ang mga wars and rumors of wars elsewhere, and the technology, how fast-paced we are right now with AI. So hindi natin alam na we are ushering into one of the greatest periods of mankind, and the only thing we can do to preserve those memories is to write them down. Sabi ni Spencer Kimball, he is a religious leader, sabi niya, begin today and write in it your goings and comings, your deepest thoughts, your achievements and your failures, your associations and your triumphs, your impressions and your testimonies. So ito yung kanyang admonition na lahat sinusulat natin, but in a way that it will also inspire those who will read it in the future. Let me take a really solid example. Where did we get the Bible today? The scriptures. These scriptures were written during the ancient times on scrolls, on papyrus. And yung iba pa nga, through hieroglyphics, yung mga inuukit sa bato. These are all diaries, journals of people who lived before. And even up to thousands of years after they lived, still we talk about these people. We have the accounts of the prophets. We have the accounts of the great men and women who lived before us. Kaya yun yung kanyang significant milestone. Yan yung kanya talagang pinakamalaking contribution na gagawin mo. And if you are thinking about your life today and how you're going to affect your future generation, the only thing that will survive time, kapag na-preserve ng maayos dyan, will be the memories that you have gained through your experiences. Isn't it wonderful to think about just that? Sabi pa ni Spencer Kimball, no one is commonplace. And sabi niya, your story should be written now while it is fresh and while the true details are available. Sa pagsusulat natin ng journal and diary, please be truthful. Do not fabricate stories because a true historian will never do that, will never bend the truth. So, importante na makakapture natin yon. And not just only the daily, yung pakiramdam mo. You also think about the political climate. You also think about ano yung present vibe and mood and yung mga in and outs dun sa economy natin. To consider all of those things, the interplay of so many aspects of our lives, and yun yung magpapa-enrich ng iyong pagsusulat ng iyong journals. Furthermore, he said that there will be rich passages that will be quoted by your posterity. Sa bahay namin, we have bought a lot of quotations, yung mga compilations of people and the things they uttered before. You'll never know. Pag nakita yan ng isang historian when they're trying to compile now and write your biography, then makikita nila na, uy, sinabi mo pala to at this time. And tulad ng mga pinag-aaralan natin ngayon, maraming hindi namamatay, diba? They have become immortal, timeless quotations that we study today from people who are dead a long time ago. Just think about that. Now, anong pwede mong gawin para maging meaningful ang journaling mo? So that when you look back, when you start looking for the right material, you would tell yourself, I did the right thing. Number one is be consistent. Consistency is really the key. As much as possible, kung kakayanin mo daily, but don't sweat over it. Minsan kasi merong pagkakataon na hindi mo talaga, nothing significant that happened that day. If you can, yes. But the thing is, be consistent. Hindi yung parang nagsulat ka this year, after 2 years saka pa lang nagsulat. So, ang laki ng gap ng time. Sayang. Ang daming missing information. For someone who's going, let's say your daughter or your son, or is going to compile your story, mahihirapan sila i-connect yun. Especially if you're doing your family history, family search, or genealogy. Kapag magaling ka magsulat that way, be consistent. Number one is create a relaxing routine around it. Minsan kasi pag parents, when you tell your kids to do it, nagiging utos. Pero sa'yo, gawin mo na maging masaya yung atmosphere mo. Play some music that can enhance your thinking, your mood. Do it at a time when your mind is still fresh and hindi ka iniistorbo ng kung sino-sino. Because when you do your journal, pag nasa loob ka ng trabaho, of course, that's also cheating time away from work. You don't do that. Ang mahalaga nito is you keep the diary, something that you can tuck inside your bag. So that wherever you go, meron ka man maisip, palagi ka lang may pagsusulatan. Some people prefer using their phones, their iPhones, since meron naman yung notes section. It doesn't matter. There's so many ways to do it. Kaya nga, we are not going to limit ourselves with just one way of doing it. Ang mahalaga, you are enjoying the process. Yun ang pinaka-importante sa lahat ng ginagawa natin. Another thing is keep your entries short and simple. Do not feel the pressure of being a novelist or kailangan talaga ganito, no? Kasi more often than not, these are like scribbles, drafts, and hindi mo maiwasan, may mga erasures ka magagawa. The thing is, make it short and simple lang, no? A paragraph or two that encapsulates what happens to you within that day. Ganun siya. And then be consistent until pag nasanay ka na, I tell you, doon ka pa makakapagsimulang mag-explore pa ng how you're going to enrich your writing. The other thing is don't beat yourself up over misses. If you miss today, just do it tomorrow. Meron kasing mga guilt trip na hindi na nagsulat. So, totally abandoning journaling and then parang after 5 years na, wala pa rin na silang ginawa. I hope that will not happen to you. Follow your bliss. You can use the bullet method. May mga taong gusto nila na bullet lang. Okay, bullet number 1, ito yung nangyari sa akin. Number 2, pwede yun. Pwede nang mag-doodle ka lang. Drawing. Ginagawa na yung anak ko yan, si Brianna eh. Madalas talagang ang ginagawa niya, puro na lang drawings, tapos may konting one-liner or two. Just be creative how you're going to do it. And if you are experiencing a writer's block, wala kang maisulat, you subscribe to writing prompts or answer a jar of questions. Marami ka makikita nito sa Google. Type mo lang, sample questions for writing a journal or diary. Tapos ako nakakita ko ng 100, I think. I cut them up, yung mga strips of questions, put it in a jar. Pag talagang wala akong maisip anong susulat ko, I just pick one question and then I write. Okay? So these are some of the ways to meaningful journaling. Moving on, ito pag-usapan natin. Ano ba yung susulat natin sa mga journals natin? Of course, may nasabi na tayo kanina, but you can write more. Write there about your reflections. You see someone begging in the street, tapos medyo naapektuhan ka, write about it. Why do you feel so sad? Is there like an experience in the past that makes you feel this way? O kaya naman, bigla kang may suddenly na-experience mo yung sunset and you realize you've been missing this experience because when you were young, you used to look at the sky, sunset. Pero dahil sa kabisihan mo, nawala na yon. So recapture the moment and just put there, wow, this is such an unforgettable experience for me today. Why? Because just looking at the umber colors of the sky, and now I'm seeing the kites. I remember back in the 80s, 90s. So ganon, try to invoke those kind of feelings and just go on. Not even thinking about your grammar or how the sentences go. Okay lang yun. You also talk about the insights and impressions. Probably you talk to someone, may sinabi siya sa'yo na isang linya that awakened your senses. Anong napakiramdam mo sa sinabi niya and you write about it? Do you agree or disagree and why? Ako madalas sinusulat ko poems. So I usually write with one-liner, two-liner, then I develop that poem. Meron ding short stories. Minsan kasi pag nakatingin ka sa isang let's say ako kasi madalas nasa airport ako, nasa seaport ako, I have plenty of time to think and just observe people and observe everything. So, minsan may mga pumapasok na story sa utak ko and then nilalagay ko yan. Kahit ano lang siya, kahit mga ganong klaseng draft, okay lang. So, when the time comes that I go back to them, I realize, naisip ko pala itong ganitong klase and it's something, if I want to explore it more or develop it more at future time, pwede rin. You can write down dialogues that captured you, testimonies about your faith, about your religion, letters as well. Ako ginagawa ko to yearly that I write letters to my children, to my husband, because at any time na mamatay ako, gusto ko may mababasa silang recent letter ko for them. If you're like me, I also put pieces and parcels of souvenirs. May mga kinain akong chocolate, mga tissue sa iba't ibang restaurants, mga ganon. Mahilig ako sa mga trinkets. Personal quotes or maxims. Suddenly a stroke of genius comes to you. Then you write about, wow. And then later on, magugulat ka na, sinulat ko ba to? Capture photos as well. You talk about your associations with people or associations kung saan ka man where you are. And etc. Napakadami mo pa talagang pwedeng isulat. And if you're just limited right now to sa mga sinusulat mo ngayon na palagi na lang, humdrum na lang, so try this. Try this combination, this mix of ideas to put on your journal. Okay? Are we all good so far? Let me know if you're good. Give me a thumbs up, please. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Ayan. Anybody knows who is this character you're seeing right now? Yeah, Minnesota. I was Dumbledore from Harry Potter. I'm a Potterhead. And anybody who's familiar with this, ano yung hawak niya? What's that? We put the wand on his head and then there's this thing here in the middle. It's called the pensive. Okay, so si Albus has this pensive that each time he needs to unload his mind to study a memory. Okay? He will just he will just borrow it from his head. Kaya ginagamit niya yung one niya. And he will look into that certain memory that confounds him. And he'll put it in that pensive. Tapos, pag nandoon na yung memory, he will now dip his face doon sa pensive, and then he will watch what happened. He will watch the memory. Isn't it really, kung totoo nga ito, ano? Ang ganda na gano'n na parang, kasi minsan naghahanap ka ng missing pieces. What really happened that day? What really happened with this person at this time? So if there is a way for us to recollect our memory, precise, no? Walang labis, walang kulang, then why not? So this writing of journal, this diary, is works like a pensive for us. As you grow older, as we grow older, we can no longer trust our brain to function at its maximum capacity. Marami na tayong makakalimutan. Okay? So, if that's one thing na, if I can just emphasize this, no? Kasi, lalo na ang mga tao na nagsusulat, malayo sila sa Alzheimer's disease. That's one scientific fact. All right? So, keep writing your journals and diaries. Now, any questions regarding our journals or diaries? Or we're good? Madali lang naman eh, no? Ito ngayon ang pag-usapan natin. Let's talk about memoirs now. Ayan. Sino sa inyo dito mga interesado magsulat ng memoirs? Please give me a heart. Okay. All right, we have marami sa inyo magsusulat pala ng memoirs ha. Okay, let's dive in right now. Memoir is a collection of personal memories of specific moments or experiences in the author's life. The defining characters that sets memoirs apart from autobiographies and biographies is their scope. Okay? So while the other genres focus on the entire timeline of a person's life, memoirs structure themselves on one aspect, such as vocation, career, migration to another country, your illness, your faith, your education, your relationship with your parents, your parenting. So marami, no? Marami naman talagang aspeto ng buhay natin. Pipili ka ngayon ng isa for one memoir. They may tell stories from various moments in your author's life. Kasi halimbawa, ang career mo spanned for like 50 years that you worked. Or let's say 60 years. So, iba't ibang ano yun, iba't ibang mga taon yun. However, you have to make sure that it is a cohesive story. Pag sinabi mong cohesive, ibig sabihin nag-aano sila, nagli-link together. Walang loopholes. Para siyang isang pole na tinuhog mo yung lechon, diba? Yung baboy. Diretso yun. So, tutuhugin mo. Ganun din. Kasi pag retelling of facts ka lang, I tell you, it's going to be boring. Boring talaga. Okay? Sino ba ang taong kilala ninyo na mahiling magbasa lang ng puro facts, ng figures? I think statistician, right? Pero sa atin, a regular reader doesn't appeal that way. Bakit tayo nanonood ng mga K-drama? Bakit tayo nanonood ng mga ganitong mga movies? Why are we connected to certain books and all? Because, again, we are connected through our emotions. Kailangan ito talaga yon. Kakantihin natin yung emotions. So remember, even if the story spans for decades, it has to be cohesive. No? Meron silang running theme. Hindi pwedeng mag-deviate para maganda yung iyong pagkukwento. Okay? That's the art of storytelling. Now, there are 5 things I want to tell you which are the best practices for writing memoirs. Number 1 is think reader first. First of all, determine the takeaway value of your story. What can readers learn and how might they grow from knowing a hardship you overcame, a relationship you saved or disposed, a fate that you found? Kailangan may value. Kasi kung nagkukwento ka lang naman na wala namang pinatunguhan, walang takeaway, ganun din yun sa reader. Wala naman sa kanilang value eh. Hindi mo nga nakita yung value sa'yo. So, Even if your reader is a different gender, race, age, religion, social status, or location from you, meron tayong tinatawag na mga general themes that all of us go through. For example, all of us go through heartbreaks. We experience fear, pain, and loss, happiness, success, failure, financial problems, probably. So, think about those themes na makakakonect sa mga tao. And then think about how you have dealt with those to become the person you are now. Kasi meron tayong tinatawag na transformation dapat eh. Remember what we talk about helping the readers from point A to point B? Ganun din dito sa memoirs. And through your journey, they will realize that, oo nga, may pag-asa pa pala ako. Also, this is how I should be doing. Ganito pala ang atake dito. So it would serve not only as educational to your readers, but inspirational as well. Okay? The other one is when you talk about anecdotes, sariling story mo kasi to, diba? Nothing is more powerful than the telling of your personal story. Even in Toastmasters, this is what we say. Pag sumasagot kami during table topics, session yung wala kang preparation, the question will be given to you offhandedly, and then you're just given only a few seconds to think about it. What you can do really is just get a story from your life, and no one can contend you about it because this is your story. So tips for writing anecdotes is read, read, and read. You should read a dozen of books, read dozens of books in your genre before trying to write it. Whether fiction yan or non-fiction, parehas ka magbasa. Yun ang minsan problema, hindi mo talaga pwedeng sabihin na magiging magaling ka na writer if you hate reading. Hindi talaga yung magko-connect. So if you wanna be a good writer, then be an avid reader. Yun lang talaga ang solusyon, okay? So in a typical structure, you have the main character. In this case, you are the main character. You are the one telling the story. And then dapat palaging may conflict. May challenge ka agad. Yung mga best-selling books, mapapansin nyo, first page, first chapter, there's already an action. The action that na binigay mo kaagad sa iyong MC, sa iyong main character, binigay mo kaagad siya ng problema. Kaya matindi ang kanyang appeal sa reader. And then there's a hook. The first sentence should tell the reader, you cannot drop this. This is so good. You don't want to miss it. Kaya meron tayong mga tinatawag na mga page turners eh. Kasi these writers have already mastered the art of leaving cliffhangers, yung mga hooks towards the end of the chapter. You just can't put the book down. And then dapat marunong din tayo sa dialogue. Okay? Yung dialogue that stays true to the character of those who are involved in that certain scene. Hindi pwedeng parehas yung pagsasalita mo sa iyong
Ako na ibili na, pero paano ko ibalik ha?
Dapat pagkakaiba yun. Okay, let me just look. Hanapin ko lang kung saan yung noise so I can mute it.
Feel dog yun ako, akong ibili.
Hindi ko makita.
Ay, sa kupita ka, nagdino ko ito. Ba, ako nakatagam ito nun.
Kindly mute na lang po kung sino yung... Okay, found it. Okay. Now, there should also be a setting. Kailangan mo rin establish where you are because it helps the readers find out mga cultural cues, political cues. Kaya pala because he lives in the Philippines, that's why they have this. Kaya pala ganyan ang conflict, it's because nandoon pala siya sa Middle East. So, when you give the setting, it helps the reader pictures in his mind ano ang nangyayari at bakit nangyayari ang mga bagay na to. Then there's also action, there's tension, there's conflict, at i-manage mo rin yung pacing ng iyong pagkukwento. For example, you cannot put all 10 people in one chapter. Parang ang gulo nun, no? Pinakilala mo sila kaagad, 10 doon sa first chapter mo. Dapat, kung napapansin nyo, if you are reading yung mga fiction stories, mga novels, mapapansin nyo, ang pag-introduce ng mga characters, paunti-unti yan. Okay? Ni-sprinkle yan all throughout to keep it, to keep the readers hooked. And then you also have the climax. Meron ka rin dapat climax. Ano yung part wherein everything is making sense right now. And then there's also the resolution. And then there is a denouement. So, marami siyang, the typical story arc na ginagamit. Marami mga ibang mga methods how you're going to tell your story, but practically you have this. Okay? The other thing I'd like to tell you is about choose your anecdotes very well. Hindi lahat ng kwento mo dapat mong isama. A successful memoir does not sugarcoat the truth. You may find it painful to dig deep enough to mine close to the bone and write about abuse. Mahirap na mga topic to divorce, poverty, debilitating disease and war, even gender issues. Mahirap to. But relieving such pain will be worth it when readers identify and learn and grow from what they've been through. Tama ba? So embrace who you are. Embrace everything about you because that is what you put on the table. Yun yung value offering sa iyong mga readers. However, resist the temptation to be preachy. Huwag kang magtuturo. If the shoe fits, they will wear it. Pero yung pag sinasabi mo, ito gawin mo, no. You don't tell your readers what to do. Treat them as intelligent human beings who can decide for themselves because indeed they are. We are intelligent human beings. Alam natin pag niloloko tayo, alam natin pag totoo din yung sinasabi sa atin. Okay? So choose your anecdotes. Now, let me introduce you to some of the most influential and most successful memoirs throughout time. Number one is The Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. This is one of the most popular memoirs because it tells the story of Frank McCourt's childhood growing up desperately poor in Ireland. Oh, alam mo na, nung nagbabasa ako ng mga ganito, na-realize kong hirap nga talaga ng buhay nila. Meron pa nga dito yung train orphan na pinapadala yung mga bata tapos sinesell sila as slaves to other countries. So this one tells about that, kung ano yung ganing hirap sa buhay, and a very heartwarming story. The other one, which I have also, is Becoming by Michelle Obama. As you all know, Michelle Obama used to be the First Lady of the United States of America. And then, ang ganda nito because, tinan nyo it is one of the most best-selling memoirs of all time. It's helping anyone become anyone, big or small. Ang ganda nito because Michelle tells you about before pa siya nakatapak sa White House, talagang goal setter na talaga siya. Sa mga maliliit pala ng mga goals niya, sinisigurado niya. Ganun. And along with it comes her set of beautiful values that she has kept throughout the years. We also have the Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. Kilala niyo siguro si George Orwell, ano? It takes us into a journey through poverty in Paris and London where he meets all kinds of people in school or just trying to get by. So, hirap ng buhay ang pinakita niya dito. And then, Educated by Tara Westover. It shook the world in 2018 and has spent more than 125 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. So, get a copy of this. It's a time when many people had lost faith in democracy. This educated memoir sheds light on what can happen in isolated communities without government. Westover grew up in a survivalist home and was homeschooled until 17, and she decided to study hard for college entrance exams, and once there, her entire world opened up. Educated is really, parang sinasabi ni dito na education is the doorway to opportunities. Ito yung pinaka-premise ng book. Yeah. Now, we also have Fun Home by Alison Bechtel. This is, ito naman, medyo offbeat ang tawag ito, something that hindi natin palagi naririnig, but this is about a funeral home with a dysfunctional family called the Fun Home. So, graphic memoir that tells the complicated relationship with her father, and then she came out as a lesbian and soon discovered that her father is also gay. So, yung mga tinatawag natin mga dark secrets. Okay? So, here it is. The Glass Castle naman by Jeanette Walls is a story of chaotic, dysfunctional parents. Yes, meron siya alcoholic father and stubborn mother. And then they bounce from home to home, state to state, lipat-lipat. And then The Glass Castle is simultaneously beautiful and infuriating, and one of the more well-known and most influential memoirs of the last few decades. Take down notes of all of these titles kasi this will help you really decide kung ano yung aspeto ng buhay mo gagawin mong memoir. Ayang Malala, kilala siguro natin siya. binaril to, no, ng Taliban sa mukha niya because um, gusto niya mag-aral eh. But in their culture, women are not groomed to be educated. It's only the boys who were sent to school. Pero once when she's recovered, that's when she shared her story, and that's it. That's opened up, and now there's a lot of also women like her standing up for the rights to get education. There's another one. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. You know Maya Angelou, right? Great poet, a great writer, and social activist as well. This is a classic because it is poetic, powerful, hopeful, and painful as well. Because this tells the story of how they were sent to live with their grandmother when they were kids and then being totally abandoned by their mother. All right? So this talks about racism and abuse as well. Kasama na rin to sa mga isang required reading for high school English classes. If I don't know kung meron kayo nito. And then the last one I want to share with you is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. Alam naman natin na medyo tragic din ang kanyang ending. But here, because of him, ito, sinabi niya yung mga dirty secrets naman that he learned in 25 years of working in the culinary trade. It's full of sex, drugs, and drama. And then, because of this memoir, naging popular sub-genre na rin ngayon ang tinatawag nating food memoir. Okay? Pag titinan nyo yan ngayon sa mga online stores, marami na nagsusulat ngayon. It also launched Bourdain's public career with several more food memoirs and food travel shows on CNN and Food Network. So if you're into culinary, then probably this is one thing that you may want to explore, right? So I hope that seeing this top memoirs, this top influential memoirs, nagkaroon kayo ngayon ng enlightenment as to which part of your life would you bring it to light and tell people about it. Okay? So remember this, a successful memoir is not really about you in the end. Okay? It's about your reader all the time. It's about your reader. They must resonate with you. They have to identify with you. They must be able to apply to their own lives the lessons they learned, applying universal truths and transferable principles. Regardless of how fascinating your life may be, minsan kasi masyado tayong in love sa mga stories natin eh. But remember that readers care more about what's in your memoir for them. Kaya nga sabi natin, always think reader first. Now, number 3, research. Sometimes our memory doesn't serve us right, especially when we are aging or whatever. So don't count only on what you can remember. You can do research to add specificity and believability. Specificity. Hirap na. So sino ba yung mga taong nakasama mo? Especially, halimbawa, you're talking about the time that you had a divorce. Sino yung mga taong nandoon? But you have to contact them and get permission, especially when you are publishing their real names. May consent. Kasi pag wala kang consent nila, pwede kang habulin legally and baka naman mapasama ka palalo. So get their perspective on the stories you're telling, comb through photographs, weather reports, maps, and even childhood drawings or trinkets. When my husband and I were already being interviewed by Maalaala Mo Kaya for our episode, they made sure that we signed the contract. Doon sa clause ng contract na yon, sinabi sa amin that we are liable for anything that may arise because we did not, hindi namin sinabi yung totoo or hindi pumayag yung mga taong involved na sinama namin sa story. So we had to get their permission. And when the people involved in your story tell you not to include their first name or where they live, you should honor that. Otherwise, they can file legal complaints against you. So, kasama yan sa iyong gagawin. Mas maraming, may mga resource din, may mga sources ka, mas enriching yung magiging story mo. Okay? Number 4 is outline your book. So, I would like to suggest Dean Kunt's classic story structure to use. So, here you plunge your main character, that's you, into terrible trouble as soon as possible. Action ka agad. First page pa lang, dapat riveting na siya. Now, everything you try to do to get out of the trouble makes it only progressively worse. So, parang one after the other. Grabe yung adversities. Talagang kinawawa ka. Kumbaga sa boxing, palagi ka nalang tumanggap ka ng maraming suntok. So what happens now? Until your situation appears hopeless, you have reached a plateau. There's no way out. But in the end, because of what you've learned and what you've grown through battling all those setbacks, you rise to the challenge and win the day. So, heroes, journey ang dating, di ba? So, ganon ang pagkukwento natin ng ating mga story. Okay? And ask yourself, para pag nag-sequence ka ng anecdotes mo, mas magiging madali. When did you face your worst trouble? When did you reach your lowest point? How did you rise from it? And what did you learn and how did it change you? Follow this pattern and it will become easier for you to write it. Number 5, write it like a novel. Ito, there's a certain practice that you need to do now kasi maganda yung meron ka ring background sa pagbabasa ng novel. Now, one of the most important things that we tell when it comes to fiction writing is you have to show, don't tell. Even in poetry, you don't say, I'm sad, I'm happy. Okay? So your reader yearns to feel as if he's there and experience things with you. Not simply being told about them. Oh, that's the sun over there, that's the chair, or there's a building over there. Hindi ganun ang paglalahad natin. Instead, sabi ni Anton Chekhov, don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass. O, diba? Na-elevate ka agad ang iyong language there. Ang iyong narrative. And also remember the character arc. The character arc is where you are the protagonist of your story and no protagonist ends their journey the same as when they started. Parang siya, rubber, para siyang garter that when you try, pagka hinila mo yan, it doesn't go back to its original dimension. Parang brain din, di ba? So how you grow and change compromises your character arc. Ang sarap ng pag nagbabasa ka, you thought this would happen but there's a plot twist. Di ba gusto natin yun sa mga pinanonood natin mga movies. Hindi pala talaga siya ang pumatay. The person you least expect na gagawa nun siya pa pala ang gumawa nun. So, write it like a novel and if you don't know yet, this is why I'm telling you, you should read a lot of novels. You should read a lot of books para, especially when you are targeting something na gano'n ang isusulat mo din. For a particular memoir, so kung about growth and transformation ka, you buy the book of Michelle Obama so you'll know how she did the becoming. Alright? So, if you have questions, pag-usapan natin ngayon. Now, let me just ask you, since I am going to launch it again, this course, and I hope you've learned things from our 4-day sessions. If you have some feedback and testimonial about what you've learned today or in the past 4 sessions, I would be so grateful and will be asking your permission if you send me that to ayo@unleashpowerfulcommunication.com. It can be, 1 sentence, 2 or 3 sentences, just telling me about your experience here, and with your permission, then I'll be using that for my funnel or for the future na mga marketing na gagawin ko. If only you want to do it. So I'll welcome it with open arms. And since you're here, I'd like to give this to you as an advance announcement already before talagang I will do it na malaki yan ang aking pag-announce. So if you have a ready manuscript or you're thinking about talagang dire-diretsoy mo na to, I'll invite you for my self-publishing masterclass. Okay? So, lalo na pag bago ka at wala ka pang traditional publisher, it's also important na malaman mo the in and out. So, be an indie author or a self-published author. If you want this will happen on March 29, 30, and 31. So, 3 araw to. I call it the Self-Publishing Masterclass. In here, I'm going to teach you the step-by-step process how you can get into Kindle Direct Publishing. Ang Kindle Direct Publishing is the publishing arm of Amazon. So, kung gusto mong diretso ka na, ikaw mismo magdi-design and everything, I'm gonna help you do that. That's why it's do it yourself. And then, I'm also gonna teach you self-editing like a pro. Ano yung basic manuscript techniques, strategies na dapat na gagawin mo para pag kahit wala kang professional, kasi ang mahal talaga ng bayad sa isang editor. Especially pag ang binigay mong draft ay glittered with a lot of grammatical errors, doon ka sinisignal ng malaki ng editor. However, if you know the basics of editing your manuscript, that's when you can negotiate for a price. You can significantly lower the price. And I'm also gonna teach you ano ba ang marketing essentials for authors that you should be doing starting today. Ngayon pa lang nag-iisip ka pa ng isusulat mong libro, wala ka pang ginagawa, but actually marketing starts today. Itong pag-uusap natin ngayon, dapat may gagawin ka na, leading to the time that you will publish and launch your book. So it's a limited offer. Meron lang akong certain number of students na accommodate because medyo madugo kasi to. So I will be assisting people here. And for these 3 sessions, it's a price for 2,488. But I'm announcing this to you. If you want to get it until March 16, you only get you get a price of 1,888. That's a 1,000 slash from the original price. So, yun lang din. If you wanna go for it, dire-diretso nyo na yung journey sa pagiging author, then welcome kayo sa aking masterclass. Alright? So, that's it.